So would you like to help some dogs find their forever home? Let me teach you how. Hi, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to learn a game that is quite close to my heart. It's called Forever Home, and in this game you and the other players run your own animal shelters and you're trying to help the dogs there find their forever home. Now, as somebody who's adopted a dog myself and given her forever home, this game really strikes a chord with me. Now, it's not hard to learn how to play this game. It's a very light game, very, very simple, but also very, very fun. And the theme is a nice, warm one that leaves you with a good, fuzzy feeling at the end of it. Now, Forever Home was published by Birdwood Games in 2023, and the game was designed by Lottie and Jack Hazel. On BGA, the game plays in around 20 minutes, making it a great filler game that you can use to while away the hours. Let's start by looking at the setup. What are all these things that we are seeing on the screen in front of us? Let's start by looking at the commendations board. Commendation board is randomly assigned some dog meeples and one home card of each type: city, suburbs and countryside. The foster home card is fixed in each game. It's always going to be there. And these cards and the commendation boards together form your end game scoring. So these are the goals you are working towards, and I'll explain them a little bit later. Now, if there are 2 or 3 players, there will be 4 training cards which are placed in the training row. If there are 4 or 5 players, there will be 5 training cards. A dog token is then randomly assigned above each training card. They're not paired together. They're 2 independent markets, if you like. But they sit there together, 1 dog token above 1 training card. Now, each player also gets a shelter board, which can be placed on either the basic side or the advanced side. The difference between the basic and the advanced is that the advanced side has a few funky powers, which we'll talk about at the end of this teach. I do recommend for your first few playthroughs, you stick to the basic side, which keeps the game nice and simple. Now, each player gets dealt 2 training cards. The first player is randomly determined, and then a pool of dog tokens is created equal to 2 per player. Starting with the first player, that player selects 1 dog token from that pool. Then the next player will select 1 dog token until you reach the last player. The last player will select 2 tokens, and then it returns back the other way towards the first player, with each player taking 1 token. So the first player will get first and last pick, and the last player will get to pick twice in a row. These 2 dog tokens form your initial supply, and you must place these dog tokens onto your 5x5 shelter grid before the game begins. Once all players have placed their dog tokens and received their training cards, and the market is created, and you have prepared the commendations board and the shelter cards, you are now ready to begin playing the game. Let's look at how this game plays. How do we get those dogs into their forever homes? So, each turn you will have 2 actions to take, and you may take the same action more than once. Play will continue with each player taking 2 actions, then the next player taking 2 actions, etc., 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 until one player has completed 7 training cards. How you complete those training cards we'll talk about in a little moment. Play will then continue. When that player has reached 7 training cards, play will continue until the first player is reached again. So every player will have had an equal number of turns. So the game end is triggered at 7. When one player reaches 7 training cards completed, everyone else plays out their turns. So until we reach the first player, and then the game ends and end game scoring happens. So what are these 2 actions that you can take? Well, you have a choice of 3 that you can take. And remember, you can take the same one more than once. The first action is to take any dog token from the central area, and you can place it on your shelter grid. Now, if you're playing 2 or 3 players, there are 4 dogs to choose from. If you're playing 4 or 5 players, there are 5 dogs to choose from. You take the dog, you place that dog in your shelter grid, and then the market will be replenished. So you will be always choose, if your second action is to choose a dog again, the market will have been replenished. That's important to bear in mind. Now, when you place dogs on your shelter grid, you can place the dog anywhere, but you cannot place 2 dogs one on top of each other. Only one dog can occupy one of those 25 spaces. Also, you must take the dog from the ones on display. You can never take a dog from the bag, the virtual bag in the case of BGA, but you must always pick one of the ones which are on display. That is taking a dog. The next thing you can do is take one of the training cards that are on display and add this to your hand. Now, training cards are kept secret from the other players. They form your hand, and your hand is not public knowledge. The training card that you take is also replaced once you take it. So if you take 2 actions in a row to take training cards, you will always have the full pick of the cards on display. You have a hand limit of 5 dog training cards in your hand. You cannot have more than 5 cards. Also, you cannot take training cards directly from the deck. You must always take one of the face-up cards in the training card row. Now, the last action is to move a dog on your board 1 space. You must move it into an empty space. Remember, 2 dogs cannot occupy the same space, and dogs can move in any direction. So up, down, left, right, or diagonally. It is 1 action to move 1 dog 1 space. Remember that. When you take an action, you might complete one of your training cards. And if you do that, you must complete, if you've met the conditions of the training card, you must complete the training card. Now, before we know how to complete training cards, let's take a look at a training card and explain the different symbols upon the training card so you know how you complete them. The first is the little green number inside the house. That is the graduation number. So when you have trained and socialized these stray dogs in your shelter, they're now ready to be home, to be given forever homes. And this number represents how many dogs have completed that training and can be sent to forever homes. This, in game terms, represents how many dog tokens you can move from your shelter board to the shelter homes above your shelter grid. The next thing to look at on a training card is the pattern grid. These blocks represent how a training card can be completed, and they require you to have dog tokens on your shelter board in specific patterns. The lighter coloured icons represent dog tokens of a single type. The darker coloured tokens represent dog tokens of a different type. But don't make the mistake I made in many of my first games. The lighter colours are a single type and the darker colours are a single type. Let's look at how a training card completes. Here you can see that we have a training card that can graduate 2 dogs to their forever homes. The pattern requires a central line of a single type of dog, in this case yellow, and it requires 2 other dogs of the same colour on the sides. In this case, I have completed it with red. Once I have placed that red dog down, I have matched that pattern and I must complete the trainer card. Once it is completed, I will then choose which dogs I will graduate. Once I've chosen those dogs, the card goes into my completed pile. The completed pile is also face down. You can look at your own at any time, but you cannot see your opponent's completed cards. The last symbol is the number in the little heart-shaped dog tag that is at the bottom of the card. That is how many points completing that training card is worth at the end of the game. And there we have the actions that are going to take place in the game. You're going to get more dogs, you're going to get more training cards, you're going to move dogs around your shelter home to match the patterns on your training cards, you're completing those training cards and rehoming the dogs. Once 7 training cards have been completed, the game end is triggered, and then we will go to end game scoring. There is another rare way that the game can end, and that is that there are no more dogs or training cards available. If either of those supplies run out, the game end will be triggered. Again, everyone will get an equal number of turns, and then the game will end. So how do we do final scoring? Well, there are 3 ways that you score points at the end of the game. There is a reputation from the completed training cards, so the number in those heart-shaped dog tags. So you add up all your total, and that is how many points you get from that. There is also reputation or points that are scored by the home cards requirements that were randomly assigned at the beginning of the game. We'll have a look at those in a moment. And then lastly, points that you score, reputation, you score from commendations, where those dog meeples were placed at the beginning of the game. Again, we'll look in detail at that in a second. Let's have a look at the home cards. There is always 1 home card for the city, 1 for the suburbs, and 1 for the countryside. The city is generally collecting dogs of different colours. So you want to be homing dogs there of different colours. And for each different set that you have there, you will score a set number of points. So if you have 5 dogs of different colours, you will get 9 points. The suburbs gives you points for homing certain sets of coloured dogs. So if I was to home a single red dog in this case, I would get 1 point. If I was to home a red and a blue dog there, that would score me 3. And if I was to home a red, a blue and an orange dog there, I would score 6 points. I can score this card multiple times with different sets. Nice. The countryside requires you to match a pattern. So in this case, I would need 3 dogs of one colour and 2 dogs of another colour. And for that grouping, I will get 9 points. So if I had 3 red dogs and 2 yellow dogs there, I would get 9 points. And lastly, the foster home. Foster homes are not ideal, and as a result, this particular home it scores you 1 point for every dog token that you put there. So it's a way of scoring something, but it's not scoring the forever home that you really want to score, that you want your dogs to go to. Now, these will be randomized and they will change a little bit. They can vary a little bit, except the foster home. The foster home is always fixed. Now let's look at the commendation board. The commendation board has 3 different scoring types, and the coloured dogs are assigned to those spaces randomly at the beginning of the game. The 3 different scoring categories are most dogs in training, most rehomed dogs, and most dogs in different homes. The most dogs in training are how many of that colour are on your board. So they have not been homed in foster homes. So in this instance, who has the most red dogs on their board at the end of the game will score 3 points. Whoever has the most yellow will score 1 point. Most rehomed is how many of those are on any of the home cards at the end of the game. How many have you placed into the home section of your boards? If you have the most blue dogs, you score 3 points, pink 2, purple 1. And remember, this is just for this game. The meeples came this way. Each game, these will be randomized and will be completely different. So you count the number of dogs in all the different homes of that color and see who has the most. Lastly, you have the most in different homes. And here you are counting just 1 per different home, city, suburb, countryside, or foster home. So a maximum of 4, because there are 4 different homes. And it doesn't matter if you had, in this case, 2 orange dogs in the city, that is an orange dog in one of the homes. So here you want to spread them into different homes, which can be a bit tricky when you're trying to complete all the other objectives. So what happens if players tie? Ties are friendly in this game, as they should be, with such a warm and happy theme. And so in this case, let's assume that we're playing a 4-player game. 2 players have both rehomed 4 blue dogs. Everyone else has rehomed less than that. Both of those players would score 3 points. It's friendly ties. They both score the points for it. A last few words about the advanced shelter boards. On the advanced side of the board, if you're playing with advanced boards, you will see a few symbols. Now, these add a little wrinkle, as I'm so fond of saying, to the game. There are usually 5 special skill squares on the grid. When you place a dog on one of those spaces, the skill is triggered. Let's look at the different icons and what do they do. So the diagonal line, you may move another dog on your shelter grid a number of spaces in that direction. Dogs may pass over other dogs while moving, but it must finish in an empty space. Now, the dog that was placed to trigger that skill cannot be affected by the skill. So you cannot place a dog on a space and then move them. No. Now, the 2 cards swapping symbol. You may exchange a training card from within your hand with one on the display. That means if there's one which you now can't complete, you can swap it out, maybe instantly complete a training card from the display as a result. And the one with the 2 dog symbols, you may exchange a dog from your shelter board with one in the central area. The dog that you take from the central area must be placed in the space that was vacated by the dog you swapped. A couple of quick notes about these special skills. They're always optional. You never have to use them. If a dog is removed from the special skill space, it can be re-triggered. And the special skills cannot be activated when you're placing dogs during setup. Those skills are not active at that time. So that is how you play Forever Home and how you get dogs into their forever homes, a theme I absolutely love from Birdwood Games. Give it a try. It's a 20-minute game. As you can see, it's pretty simple, but it does require a little bit of thought to play well. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you'd like to see more tutorials, more playthroughs, more tips videos, please like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. And let us know what you thought about Forever Home down in the comments. Until next time, wherever you are in the world, have a great day.